Hi, it's Scott. ROCKFILE back with another podcast review. Let's talk about that new Arrow 4K edition of The Cell. Jennifer Lopez, Vince Vaughn, Vincent D'Onofrio, Tarsem directed it, Tarsem Singh. This was his first big movie after directing a whole bunch of videos like R.E.M's Losing My Religion. The Cell premiered in August of 2000, a $33 million film, grossed $104 million, picked up an Academy Award nomination for makeup, 4 Saturn Award nominations, and a whole lot more. Even though it was kind of mixed reviews, it made decent money. They did make a direct-to-video sequel that I've never seen and have no interest in whatsoever. It has really nothing to do with the original movie except that somebody goes into somebody's dreams. I don't think they use the technology. I think it's something else. So the idea of the film is that they're coming up with this new technology where you can go into somebody's subconscious. There's a young boy who's comatose, and through a viral infection, he's got an unusual form of schizophrenia, and she wants to go in there and kind of fix him up. And this is how we're introduced to Jennifer Lopez's character. Vince Vaughn is an FBI agent, and Vincent D'Onofrio is the bad guy. He has kind of a medical situation himself, and they need to call in Jennifer Lopez's people to see if they can get into Vincent D'Onofrio's head and see, because he's a serial killer, right, to find the victim of his current killing spree. She may not be dead yet, and they need to know. So this is a play on a little bit of Dreamscape and a few other movies we've seen before, done in a very, very interesting, unique visual way. Tarsem is a great director. He directed a couple of classic films and went on to, I think he was trying to hone his style into something more mainstream with movies like Mirror, Mirror that he did later on, which still made money. But The Cell and The Fall are just different kinds of movies, singular in his vision. He was able to pretty much do anything he wanted. There's a lot of extras on the Arrow special edition of The Cell, and it looks fantastic, by the way, that goes into great detail on how they created the fantasy scenes, the scenes inside of people's heads, the lighting, the cinematography, the different lenses, the different cameras, the different light bulbs, the mirrors, all sorts of things they did to create the look of this film. You really didn't think they went to that much work, but then again, you just have to watch the movie. Some of the scenes are just jaw-dropping. It's amazing how the costume design has come together with set design and cinematography to craft just a unique story. This is a Silence of the Lambs or Seven kind of film, but elevated from the touches from Tarsem. He says he gets things from all sorts of things, but everybody else that worked on the movie say most of this fantasy stuff was singularly his idea. I do like the dreamscape aspects of the film. If you haven't seen that old Dennis Quaid movie, it's ripe for a remake, I think, with today's effects. But The Cell has a little bit of that in it, the ability to go into somebody else's dream or subconscious and affect things and talk them into things and maybe bring them out of it or maybe take care of them in there, that kind of thing. The fantasy sequences are pretty... When this movie came out, I didn't think of it as a horror movie. It was more of a sci-fi kind of Silence of the Lambs kind of thing. But watching it now, it's definitely a horror movie. It has some horror movie touches, some Saw, some Seven, some other things in there. Pretty amazed. Jennifer Lopez, in one of her first roles, did a great job. She's pretty darn good in the film. Vince Vaughn, who's always good, Vincent D'Onofrio, disappears into this the serial killer, Carl Starr. There's some pretty creepy scenes that are done and some things I didn't remember. Now, the Arrow special edition that just came out on 4K at the end of January has 2 cuts of the film, the regular version, the theatrical version, and a director's cut, which is only 2 minutes longer. Some folks on the internet says that there's some repeated scenes or repeated frames. I watched the director's cut and didn't know. Well, there was one part I thought there might have been a repeated frame, but I didn't really notice it. Unfortunately, the movie did not get an Atmos upgrade, but the picture upgrade is amazing. Blows away the original Blu-ray. So we got 3 versions of the film. We got the 2 different cuts on the 4K and some of the extras. Then on the Blu-ray, there is a different cut of the film with a different aspect ratio, and then more extras. One of the extras that really blew me away is they have an 1.5 hour long feature-length documentary, which is basically a conversation with Tarsem. Now, this was filmed in 2024, talking about the movie now. Amazing. I mean, it's 25 years later, and he gives great depth. Then after that, there's another 43 minutes with the cinematographer. Goes all into the lighting and the special things they did. They didn't have as much budget as they had hoped, and they still pulled off some pretty incredible shots. There's extras aplenty on the Blu-ray too, but just to have an hour and a half with the director and 45 minutes with the cinematographer, that was worth the price of the movie right there. And being an Arrow special edition, it comes with a poster. It has this new artwork. You can flip over the slipcover and have the original artwork. There's a poster in there, and there's a booklet with some essays. I don't know why this movie's not talked about when people bring up Seven, which recently came out in 4K as well. There's actual college courses dedicated to that movie. Well, what David Fincher did with it, elevating it to beyond what it was originally on the script, I think Tarsem did the same thing with The Cell. And watching it now, it plays better now than it did back in 2000. I think people would get into it better. The 4K looks great. I mean, there's some grain, but this was a movie filmed on film back in 2000. Some of the more dreamlike sequences are a little blurry because there's a lot of compositing going on, and I think they blurred some things to make the special effects kind of blend together. But it all looks great. I mean, I was surprised that things didn't stick out like a sore thumb as being like terrible 2000 CGI special effects. They kept the CGI to a minimum and did everything with like cloth, the massive colorful cloths, clothing that people are wearing that are hanging from the ceiling, that are being pulled along the walls. It's all pretty spectacular, and you just really haven't seen a movie like this before. So add to it that Seven kind of Silence of the Lambs procedural on top of the science fiction aspect where we're going into people's dreams, and then you got some horror stuff because they don't seem to be able to defeat this guy. Even though he's laying comatose on a table, his mind is still quite active. He controls the realm he's in, I guess, and then they figure out a little twist in the end to, let's see if we can do it this way. And she takes a chance, and the movie has a very interesting ending, and then a denouement that kind of wraps everything up. All in all, I think The Cell is a classic, and I'm glad Arrow put out a 4K edition of it. I don't know what Warner Brothers' new line was thinking by letting this go, but Arrow got all these new extras involved, and the new artwork and the booklet, and it looks fantastic and sounds great. It gets one of my highest recommendations. It's going to be one of the best 4K packages of the year because, well, the movie surprised me at how good it's held up 25 years later. The Cell with Jennifer Lopez, Vince Vaughn, and Vincent D'Onofrio came out at the end of January in Arrow 4K edition. I would get it as quickly as possible if you even like this movie. Looks and sounds great. More extras than you can imagine. You get deep into the film. It's a great movie. I mean, it's right. It sits on the shelf now next to Silence of the Lambs and Seven. I think it's that good. So you check it out and let me know. Do you think it held up since 2000? What do you think about the performances? All in all, it's a pretty spectacular package and a pretty spectacular movie for what it is and the time period it came out. Wow, it holds up great. Scott, I'm ROCKFILE. More podcast reviews on the way. I think this is the end of my Arrow box that I got in of all those. I think seems like all my last reviews have been Arrow releases, but we'll see. Going forward, there's a whole lot more podcasts on the way and more drone videos too, if with the skies would clear up. So thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to a podcast, and I hope the rest of it is spectacular.